All right, so welcome to another episode of SISU Biz. And today we have Ayana King on with us, and she's going to tell us about a couple different things that she's involved in. And really quickly, just to kind of explain to those people that haven't, maybe this is their first time tuning in to SISU Biz, you actually kind of see my daughter drew that on back there for me. So SISU is kind of a family motto for
Huh?
us. So my husband's Finnish, and Sisu in Finnish is really a part of their culture. So it's all about really the easiest way to kind of translate it is strength in the face of adversity. So it's about the Finnish spirit of not giving up, of when you see something that, is kind of in your way, you find a way to go around it, go through it. So I thought that this was such a fun way to, really kind of apply something that means a lot to our family personally, and to kind of celebrate businesses that I've seen, and people that I come in contact with that I think exemplify that, what I call the SISU spirit. So, and I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Because this for me, like, this was the picture. This is the SISU spirit right here. Like,
Aw.
I love
Ah.
that's like I love that. And that you are just, you just look at something and you're like, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to do this. And I was lucky enough, and my team was lucky enough, actually both my teams were lucky enough to have a chance to really get to know you by actually working with you and helping us understand this crazy thing that is social media. um so I have to tell you before we get started, this
Yes.
is, so we call this affectionately our Ayana King calendar. And can you see it's like, so this is my 2021 version, and it tells you every day, like, and if, listen, for any of you out there
Yes.
that don't understand how I use this, then you need to get a hold of Ayana. Because we have a whole plan, like our whole
Oh,
2021.
thank you.
People are like, what are you going to do in 2021? I'm like, I got my whole year plan. Thank you. I
You're
know
like, got it.
I'm on it. But what
Yep.
was, what's for
Got it
you?
planned. Already did it.
Exactly. What for you has been the key, to developing your businesses during, the challenges that have been presented during this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me on today. I love what you said about SISU Spirit family is Finnish. I remember you talking about the outdoor spa. So I love that you were intentional in the name you picked and why you picked it. And I just want to tell you really quickly that I love that you picked that photo because that's not the photo I used to use for LinkedIn. I used to use a more professional photo. I was very buttoned up. And someone who met me and started networking with me said, you know, that picture does not capture your personality at all. And so I went through what do you think? She's a branding consultant. She was like, use that one. So I'm so glad that you picked that picture because really, it really embodies the spirit of my business. And so when you ask about the pandemic and how I've just been able to keep it rolling, I'll say first that I've been very fortunate that my business actually grew during the pandemic. And for two reasons. And first was because, as you know, I do a lot of teach people how to use social media, usually small businesses. But what we found after March was a lot of business people did not use social media in a way that was beneficial to their marketing strategy. People were using it as an afterthought. And so I was able to really connect with folks because I network in our local chamber, which you're a part of. And I was in some other business circles, and people knew what I was doing. They were referred to me. They saw the kinds of posts I was doing. And so my business actually grew because there was just opportunity there.
And we learned, I mean, I know that you worked with both of our teams. I mean, honestly, a lot of my
Mhm.
Zoom skills, I can also credit to you because, I learned a lot about how to get on Zooms, how do you interact on Zooms? How do you, you can put up your hand, you can do little, I'm a big fan of emojis.
Yep.
So like everything that I said, I know that you've gotten
Yep.
text messages from me and I always like throw the little smiley face emoji in there because, people can, read something and take it the
Yep.
wrong way. So I'm like, okay, if I throw a happy face emoji, like if I
Yes.
throw a little tear emoji, I'm sad. But if I throw that happy face emoji, so I think it's,
Yes.
like, and you have that in Zoom, in the Zoom world too, and you can put in chats and polls and, all these kind of cool
Mhm.
things. But that is how my
Yep.
team trained with you. And it was amazing because we could,
Yes.
pull up
All
our
virtually.
actual, yeah, pull up everything, pull up things on the internet and look at them. And I think that, that was such an amazing way that businesses like yours have, pivoted. I like to call it the pandemic pivot, that have pivoted during this pandemic and said, you know what?
Yep.
We're going to do things a little bit differently. So, besides using the Zooms, how have you had to, kind of getting into your diversity inclusion training program? For
Yeah.
me, that just kind of spoke to, I guess, when I first started out my career, I read a book that, I was in the corporate world, and I read a book that was called Who Moved My Cheese? I think it was by Dr. Spencer Johnson, I think.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. That was a
and
very popular book.
it was a
Mhm.
popular book. I'm probably dating myself as to when that book came out. They're like, oh,
Oh,
hopefully people out there are going, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're that old. Yes, I am. So, but that book, I think I was in the corporate world at that point, but I think that book for me was, they were trying to say, hey, we're doing changes, internally. You just got to get, kind of used to the changes. But for me, one of the things that stuck out was a quote from that book that said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Like, what would you do if fear wasn't a part of it for
mhm.
you? And it's actually, I think, what led me to leave,
Yep.
the corporate world, because my job in the corporate world was pretty comfortable. I had bennies. I had a good salary. I made, decent money. So leaving that was kind of a fear. So, what did you have to do, kind of during the pandemic to pivot and be able to build that diversity and inclusion training program that you're involved in now?
So, so I'll explain this too about my business. So a lot of folks knew Maximum Communications because of that whole social media piece, and that coaching and, PR and strategizing and all that. But that diversity, equity, and inclusion piece had always been a part of my business. I did not have the network where I could um, really provide that kind of conversation. And I like to call it a workshop. I like to call it a discussion instead of a training, because the truth is diversity, equity, and inclusion should be a part of all of our business strategy. We should all be looking at ways to be more inclusive. And so really what happened is at the beginning of the year, I was already hosting some workshops. But truthfully, what happened with George Floyd, everything blew up. And it wasn't just this personal conversation people were having anymore. People in the workplace had to face it also, and they did not know how to talk about hard things. And so, because I had been already talking about this stuff for at least a couple years, because I had made it part of what I was doing on the marketing side too of my business, it was a natural transition for some folks I was already working with to refer me out is actually doing those kinds of workshops virtually. But I'll have to tell you that I think I I do not want to be insensitive about the pandemic at all. So I want to make that clear. But moving virtually because of what happened during the pandemic, because of, all the political and racial unrest we had at that time this summer, virtual workshops worked to have these really hard conversations, and we weren't sitting in each other's faces. So people were in their own homes. They felt more comfortable. They could ask questions. And I just think that worked better for people. And so my workshops like exploded after that, and they just continue to grow.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense because you think that, I think like we were talking about at the beginning before we started, I like being dressed up, where you can see me on camera, but I like that I'm, in some comfy, I'm in some comfy pants. It just makes you more, I think, relaxed when you feel like you're in your environment. So I can totally see how that
Yes.
would be, a really good way to have those conversations where people are a little bit
Yeah.
less guarded and aren't as concerned with,
Mhm.
with having, asking questions, maybe, that they wouldn't if they were
Yes.
in person. So I think that, that's an
Yes.
amazing, I think that's an amazing development. And hopefully, I think if
Yeah.
anything, I'm kind of a glass half full kind of a person. So I like to say like, okay, these are the positive things that came out of the pandemic. And it's been amazing to see
Yeah.
how many people, one of the things that, and here I'm going to share my screen again. Um, One of the things that I thought was really cool when I was kind of looking into, the Finnish culture is this kind of aspect of, the new frontier mindset. So how SISU helped
Mm.
the Finnish people when they were migrating. They call it the Great Migration, that they came to North America between the 1870s and 1930. And they were working in the mines, farms, forests, factories, and they became really well known for their hard work. And they also developed really tight knit communities that helped each other during these lean periods. And they were admired for their thrift. And I think, that's such a powerful message right now. I think is that, being able to actually help each other, work with each other. And, you know, I've seen businesses. One of the guests that I had on here was talking about, he has the domes, Bobcat Bonnie's. It's a pretty cool restaurant. We've got a few of them that we service actually
Oh
through
yeah. Yeah.
Enviromaster. And
Yeah.
he's got these domes. And I was like,
Oh
what do you
good.
do? What do you do? Like these domes outside to help keep people socially distant. And I'm like, what do you do if another restaurant, because I'm like, I'm seeing these pop up all over the place. What do you do if another restaurant, calls you and wants to know like how you did it? And he's like, oh, I've got a whole document. He goes, I tell them who I got it from, how much I paid, how to do it, how to set it up, what to do with the city. And I was so blown away by that because instead of going, oh, no, I'm going to hold this information, close to me and not share it,
Mhm.
his idea was that,
Yep.
hey, kind of lifting all boats. And that kind of reminds me of you
Yep.
too, is like, that idea of like, hey, we have to lift, lifting each other up. You're going to get lifted up in the
Yes.
process.
Yes.
So I think that that's just such an amazing message. And, for businesses like Matt's and like yours that are so focused on, that positivity and, just bringing that spirit, to everybody that you come in contact with. I think that's just so amazing. So overall, what do you consider to be the key to your perseverance?
Um, honestly, I'm a believer. And so I just don't believe that there is nothing that I will lack. I just don't. If I work hard for it, every door will be open unto me. And I really feel that in my spirit. It's not out of arrogance. It's not out of listen, I did not have a network. When I left my corporate position, I had been there 4 years. I had only been in corporate 3 of those years. I did not have this large network of people in senior living or marketing or diversity, equity, inclusion, or in tech. These are all places that I am working in now. And it's not because of something that I did favored. I'm serious. Like, I don't say it's what I did, it's what I did. I just think that I've been very fortunate in that way. And I don't quit. I don't quit. So maybe that's to my detriment too, because I've been really thinking about like being a workaholic lately. What does that look like? How do you know if you're a workaholic? And I was like, oh, I think I'm a workaholic, but it's because I enjoy what I'm doing so much. And what I do, it helps other people. not a workaholic because I'm doing all these things that they help me, but they really help other people too. But I just don't quit. I feel like all of these dreams, all of these goals I have in my mind, I just feel like they will come to fruition. I feel like the older I get, the better my life gets. I'm not a person who feels like, oh, I'm getting older, I missed the boat. I'm like, yes, the older I get, the better it gets. So that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I wish I could say, follow this can't quit spirit.
That's it. And that's, I mean, obviously that's what SISU is. I mean, for me, that's what SISU is all about. It's about that. So I believe that you've got SISU. This is, busting through that wall and just saying no, but it's that don't give up. I mean, that's what SISU is. The SISU spirit for the Finnish people is you don't give up. You find another way and you just keep going. And I think that's really, I mean, overall, I think that's what we're all going for, right? Is to be happy in what we do and to feel, I guess, I think that if I'm hearing you correctly, you get kind of energized by the things that you bring to other people because I know I've seen you, like when we've talked about, I'm like, oh, we did this thing on social media and we got this kind of reaction to it. And I see you on there doing that. I was just going to do the Ayana hand clap.
Yes.
But I see you doing that. We'll be in our, yes, that's so awesome. But that's it. You get true joy and uplifting from seeing people that you've worked with succeed. And I think that's why you work at what you love. And that's ultimately what we're all going for, right? Is doing something that we care about, that not only helps us, but that helps other people. And I know, you've made that difference for us. And, it was funny because I was on with Ron, on the podcast with the SWCRC. And I was like, oh yeah, Ayana's going to be on my podcast. I'm so excited. And he was like, Ayana's so great. I love her. And I think that's, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's met you that's had anything but that reaction. So, I think it's amazing. I think what you're doing is amazing. And again, if anybody doesn't know what this calendar is for, or they're struggling to have those conversations in the workplace, I think they'd be crazy not to reach out to you. So before we get off here, if somebody's trying to reach out to you either on that social media side or maybe learning that and on the diversity, equity, and inclusion side, how do they reach you? How do they get a hold of you?
So they can reach me. I'm on social media and I also have a website. So my website is getmaxcoms.com. That's GETMAXCO. And they can find me under Ayana D. King, AYANA King on LinkedIn. And I just want to say something too, when you talked about Ron's reaction, and I'll say that the other thing that I think has really helped me in my business, because again, I started my business in 2018. I think that really helped me is that I did it my way. For a long time, people will tell you, keep business, and personal. All of my business is personal to do in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. And I think,
so I hope people will connect with me.
Yes. And here's, one more thing that I want to share, because this is, let's see, do I have this on here? Let me see if I can find this. Because this is the last thing that I want to, so this, right, this is all you.
Let me see. Hold on.
Can you see it?
Yes.
So this is and this is your channel.
I am working on my YouTube skill.
Yes, this is your YouTube channel. So
I'm working on YouTube.
Yeah, this is amazing. So you guys can find Ayana on YouTube as well. So I wanted to make sure that we included this because you've had some amazing guests on there.
Thank you.
Lori Joe was actually one of my favorites. I thought she was a great guest on there as well. So I think, there's a lot of different ways that you can reach out to Ayana, but if you're struggling in any of those areas or you're looking to get some more information from her, reach out. She's easily found because she's amazing on social media, and just kind of take a
Yes.
peek, and she can help you. So awesome. I'm going